The press, to the Civic Society and Churches Joint Forum, press briefing, or you call it press conference. After a fact-finding mission that, of course, we did, stretching to 4 days from the 7th to the 10th of April 2019, with the particular concern to have some answers to the most unanswered questions that we coming on board after the, of course, disaster that we encountered as a country, as a people at large in Manicaland, Chipinge and Chimanimani, mostly, with the mostly affected areas. Allow me, before we proceed, of course, for us to observe a moment of silence, just a minute, as we remember the souls who departed. Thank you very much. With me here on panel, my name is Abigail Mpambi, and I led the delegation to Manicaland. We had Reverend A.T. Slanda on the team, Mr. Max Mkanda, who is the Vice President of NASDAQ, Mr. Nyashanau from Emancipate Disability constituency, and Miss Auma here Chwanga is the Vice Chairperson of the Civic Society and Churches Joint Forum, here also on panel. And of course, we were joined by, in our delegation, by Mr. Machikwa from the Development Agenda for Youth Organization in Manicaland. They could not make it here, they are still on the ground. Allow me to, of course, without wasting time, give just a background overview. I would dwell much on the report so that I avoid using perceptions, particularly when we are dealing with effective finding mission kind of report. I was just unpacking our delegation. Among our delegation are civic society leaders, human rights defenders, disaster management experts, and so on. The background. The devastating effects of Cyclone Idai that ravaged Malawi, Zimbabwe, and left a lot of people dead, and of course over 250,000 affected, is an issue that did not only affect these countries at country level, but us at the individual level, at community level, and mostly the people of Chimanimani and Chipinge. In the wake of the calls for intervention, scores of people and organizations flocked and continue to flock in Manicaland province to provide all forms of assistance and try to carry out various surveys, all aimed at providing help to the devastated communities. While interventions have been going on, we had rescue missions, relief teams, and of course recovery missions like now. We had noticed that there have been so much information that are washed social media, and to some extent mainstreaming media with various stories of irregularities. In the wake of media reports of looting, partisan distribution of aid to victims, which are a violation of the Code of Conduct for Humanitarianism, as espoused in Sphere Project 2011 that guides and set up a rights-based approach and parameters for aid workers, the leadership of CSCJF went on a fact-finding mission in the Cyclone Idai affected communities from Sunday the 7th to Wednesday the 10th of April 2019. The purpose of the mission, the purpose of the study mission as a monitoring and evaluation meeting was to interface with the implementation of the aid intervention and assess the gaps and challenges being faced from an independent human rights-based approach perspective, in order to make recommendations that will help in promoting transparency, accountability in the intervention. I hope you got something that is, there were some spelling mistakes. You know media, sometimes you need to be accurate even to the comma. Specific objectives of the mission: to get an appreciation of the impact of Cyclone Idai on the affected communities, to establish and ascertain the reports of alleged institutionalized looting, unfair and partisan distribution of aid, the persons and institutions involved, to gather facts on the composition, nature, and names of aid organizations working in the affected areas and get to know or to hear their position on the allegations, to assess the management of the aid work and the systems in place, to check for existing and possible loopholes in the handling of aid with the view to draw strategic recommendations to curb such, to establish if there were human rights violations in the execution of aid and get the voices from all key stakeholders, including the survivors. Methodology. The study mission used a random sampling methodology that was both qualitative and quantitative to assess the situation in terms of the above objectives. We held interviews with the district administrators, the respective district administrators, that is the district administrator Chipinge and Chimanimani, the aid workers, church leaders, and the victims of Cyclone Idai in the two districts, namely Chipinge and Chimanimani. The Constitution of Zimbabwe's Bill of Rights, as enshrined in the Constitution, has a comprehensive list of rights that include, among others, the right to life, the right to good health, the right to food, the right to safe and clean environment, the right to shelter, the right to education, among others. In addition to the above humanistic and fundamental rights, the Constitution of Zimbabwe sets guarantees to civil and political rights that form the basis of freedoms of association and freedom and expression, among other rights. The Constitution of Zimbabwe's Bill of Rights is in sync with United Nations Charter and subsequent conventions of protocol, specifically the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, Article 1.1, states that human beings has the right to life with dignity, and it stresses that in the enjoyment of this right, there should be no discrimination with regards to sex, religion, tribe, ethnicity, red, color, or creed. Against the chaos that occurred in Rwanda in 1994 after the 100 days of massive manslaughter, as aid workers got entangled in politics and fueled the crisis, international aid agencies led by Oxfam, OCHA, UNDP, UNICEF, the Red Cross, which of course are abbreviated as IRC, RC, WFP, among others, in 2004 came out with a framework to guide disaster aid intervention. The initiative was motivated by the several factors affecting disaster intervention that include the increasing number of disasters, man-made and natural, in the wake of climate change, the increasing number of factors in the humanitarian space, the increasing complexity of disasters, and the increasing competition for resources, and the increasing shrinking levels of availability of funding. The above factors push the aid agencies to collaborate and share information, resources, and increase accountability. In disasters and the Sphere project set up the human rights approach to justify the aid intervention in disasters and premises its framework on the UN Charter and subsequent conventions and protocols. It ensures that human rights are at the center of any aid intervention and that accountability and transparency are at the core, and also set up a code of conduct to guide the actions and behavior of aid workers. Using the human rights lenses and the above-mentioned tools, the mission went to the affected areas with a view of doing a preliminary study in order to assist in coming up with a Zimbabwean context framework of disaster management that will guide the recovery intervention in the affected areas and become the model tool for future interventions to enhance accountability. In carrying out the study, several questions were at the back of the minds of the mission, and these are: what is the impact of the disaster from a human rights point of view? Which rights are being violated? How many actors are on the field, and what does each actor do? Are there any systems in place to avoid duplication of roles and inter-aid agents conflict? There are other individuals that are fundraising for the disaster. Are all these stakeholders bringing what they are raising to the intended beneficiaries? What is the role of the host government and the level of its capacity to regulate all these actors? Is there any effective system of ensuring accountability? Are there loopholes within the system that enable alleged irregularities such as the partisan distribution of aid and or looting of donations by stakeholders? In asking these questions, the mission used contextual, systematic, qualitative and quantitative analysis. Cyclone Idai, complexities from disaster preparedness context, the case of Ngangu and Copper in Chimanimani. Through interviews with survivors of Cyclone Idai, particularly the Center of Eruptions in Ngangu, the mission established the following narratives that compounded the disaster and threw into disarray any disaster preparedness mechanism, if ever it was there. Ngangu community houses are modern, concrete brick houses under IBR sheeting, and to some extent tiled. The location of the houses is at recommended high ground just below the mountains and not in the valley or a low-lying area. The road, water reticulation, and electricity infrastructure is like any other modern high-density area infrastructure, and if not better than some of the housing and amenities in Harare and other towns. Cyclone Idai rainfall. The rainfall started Wednesday and went on for 72 hours, non-stop with a high-speed wind. However, due to the location of area between mountains, wind speed was not so severe. According to survivors interviewed by the mission, on the fateful Friday night, there were 3 sounds which were heard: the sound of the wind, the sound of the rain, then another strange sound that sounded like tremor of earthquake. Due to the location of the houses in Ngangu, it was not possible that people would drown in water. The houses are located on high ground, and cyclone disaster preparedness mechanism recommend that people are to move to high ground in case of such heavy rains. However, in Ngangu, water is said to have erupted or exploded from underground in the mountains, the very high ground where exactly one would take refuge. According to survivors, there was a large flow of mud that was followed by huge underground stones and water, sweeping past every house along its way downstream. Compounded by the night and cutting off electricity, there was very little that anyone could do to stop or rescue people during the course of the scourge. Anyone who attempted to save another would also drown in the mud and buried under the stones or swept away by the forceful water. The disaster is above a national disaster, but a supernatural disaster according to some various survivors. The eruptions of water underground plus the rainwater flooded the three rivers that in turn swept away the whole community of Kopa that was situated at the confluence of the three rivers, Wonde and the Rusitu rivers. In light of the above, the mission sought to understand the rescue effort that were carried out and the following issues were noted. The strike of the disaster occurred at night with so much power and force that no human being could stop it. The following morning, the whole community in Ngangu was busy searching for survivors or bodies and ferrying them to local churches, namely the Roman Catholic Church, Zayoja, and the United Methodist Church. Some of the injured from being hit by huge stones and the rubble from their houses died in churches. Those who had lost homes also took refuge with the dead bodies in those churches. Meanwhile, the ZNA rescue team was reportedly failing to access the area. Bridges and roads had been destroyed and the rain kept pouring and there was no electricity. Communication was cut on Saturday. A small helicopter that tried to come in was affected by the heavy winds and missed, leaving the DAs and his team, as well as community and the church leader, on their own in search for the missing and the dead. According to officials' reports, the first team of ZNA had to walk for about 23 kilometers from Jopa through flooded rivers to get to Ngangu, while people were also anticipating the rescue team to expedite its arrival to help them, and they walked 15 kilometers to Silver Stream for refuge burials. At least 70% of the local cemetery in Chimanimani was washed away, and the only available space for burying the dead was found next to the Heroes Acre, and the locals were assisted by a local white businessman, Mr. Kidd, to made coffins and ferried bodies on foot across the streams and digressed to bury 44 bodies in one day on a rocky area on their own. Social impact. The survivors in Ngangu are traumatized and devastated emotionally and spiritually, and these include the government officials. The effects of the trauma will have lasting devastating effect, and there may be need for government to consider relocating the people away from this area. NB, Government officials based in this area are also victims. The head of DDF is still hospitalized after being found clinging on a tree with his child against the enormous force of the water. The whole police camp in Kopa was washed away, and there is a possibility that among the bodies found in Mozambique are police officers and some civil servants on national duty, including teachers in Lesotho Primary School. Lesotho Primary School was located in Lesotho, and due to long distances, teachers used to oversuit boarding facilities to people in their home to avoid having young people walking long distance every day. The water eruptions and flooding occurred at night while they were asleep. Hence, the sweeping away of other peoples and the headmaster and 3 teachers. Government of Zimbabwe intervention. Government was on the ground with the victims through the district civic protection unit chaired by the district administrators, and there was a little they could do with limited resources and the risk associated with eruptions and the flooding. The Air Force helicopters were struggling to get to the area to rescue survivors, some who were marooned on trees due to bad weather, according to gathered reports. Alleged politicization of aid distribution. The mission noted the following. Social media and some mainstream media was awash with reports of looting and ZANU PF or government officials accused of looting. Reports alleged the partisan distribution of aid, which yet, according to reports, left and in particular the purported MDC supporters vulnerable. The context as presented by authorities in response to this. Due to the massive destruction of roads, soon after the disaster struck, the main road leading to Chimanimani from Silver Stream was not accessible. An alternative road was created that goes through the mountains, and due to the terrain in the mountains, no other car except army trucks and 4x4 vehicles could access the area using the alternative road. A call was made by President Idi Mnangagwa for donations of 4x4 vehicles or suitable vehicles to assist in carrying aid to Chimanimani. It is noted that ZANU PF Manicaland province donated 4x4 vehicles that were used to assist, like everyone else, in getting aid to the victims in Gangu. This was substantiated by agents from one international organization whom we interviewed, who did the first distribution under the supervision of the Civic Protection Unity in Chimanimani. The DA Chipinge took us through the process, and I quote, "At first the focus was on rescuing the people. However, as early as Saturday, the Chipinge Civic Protection Unity was already active, not only to help Chipinge, but also to assist their neighbor in Chimanimani, who were hard-stricken. Teams were set, and in each team was a member from the NGOs and other different departments. No distribution of food was done by a partner or a transporter as a stand-alone. Systems were set to make sure victims are identified and assisted through the set teams. Major players on aid were the UN agencies and the Red Cross, while this government was mainly coordinating. Red Cross officials, including the Red Cross ambassador, Ms. Alec Macheso, confirmed that the food distribution process was transparent and that there is no any kind of discrimination in the distribution process. Aid distribution. The mission team visited the Kondo Clinic in Ward 16, Chipinge, where aid was distributed by Red Cross. Present was also the local councillor for Ward 16, Ms. F. Stoll, who expressed satisfaction with how the food was being distributed. He instead appealed for more support. Civic Protection Unity members were also there, and we interviewed the district information officer, Mr. Dube Zaine, who was equally satisfied with the process at hand. Beneficiaries who spoke to us at Kondo Clinic were actually appreciating the partners for what they termed an organized way of doing things. Asked if there was any form of discrimination, they said this disaster unified them, and they had no time to talk of any political party issues. All was going well according to them. Our team interviewed the local NGO Development Youth Agenda Director, who had just observed the aid distribution process at Tongogara Camp, where the aid was distributed by World Food Programme on the 9th of April, and he described the process as free and fair. We visited Ngangu community in Chimanimani and the primary school in Ngangu, where 103 survivors are camped and received diversified aid from different players. In fact, people had just received clothes from one partner, and they were instead worried about the long-term solutions to their situation, since most of them had their homes destroyed. They actually expressed satisfaction with the current aid distribution. The Assistant District Administrator in Chimanimani, Mr. Nengo Masha, had however clarified how, and in particular, the aid process was being done in the district, and he had dismissed the reports of partisan, unfair, and looting, institutionalized looting as malicious and unfounded, before giving us a green light to tour the district and have an appreciation of the status quo. The following findings were noted. The Civic Protection Unity had records of victims and beneficiaries, even at the distribution centers. The distributors of the aid were not the originators of the list of beneficiaries. There was no sign of partisan agendas or intentions noted among both the distributors and the beneficiaries. Local leadership were represented in all processes. No segregation, discrimination, and or partisan slogans, regalia, or any talks of politics whatsoever. Instead, unionism was noted among the community members. Food aid and shelter is mainly being handled by international organizations that are bound by a strict international code of conduct that restricts them from segregating victims on any grounds. The clothing and wash, as well as education programs, are led by UNICEF. That is equally bound by the same international code of conduct. Coordination. The mission noted that the government of Zimbabwe has set up a system of coordination that is chaired by the Minister of Local Government and includes other ministries such as health, education, defense, among others, and the structure cascades down to the province and then to the district. At province, it is chaired by the provincial administrator and the district administrator at the district level, while in the village, it is headed by the village head. NGOs and other stakeholders sit in the very structures at various levels, and there are cluster committees that are chaired by various agencies. For example, UNICEF chairs education, and WASH, Msasa Project Gender Committee, WFP chairs food aid, etc. The mission noted the government of Zimbabwe opened up for everyone and anyone who is bringing aid to participate only within the prescribed coordination mechanism to avoid duplication and promote accountability. Challenges noted. The mission noted the following issues. There is a lot of stampede of partners, including NGOs, for visibility in the area. There are too many player fundraising for Cyclone Idai, and there is a risk that some of these funds may not reach intended beneficiaries. There is no clear system of identifying actual victims, the scale of the effects, or the level of the effect, and there is commotion at some distribution center, particularly the distribution of clothes that we noted at Ngangu by independent donors. The mission, of course, noted the confusion in Ngangu, where even those who were less affected were getting aid ahead of the most affected. The recommended minimum standards on sphere projects are not being understood by many actors, including the coordinators. There is no effective M&E system. The DA is supposed to be monitoring, but most of the time he or she is often in meetings with the various stakeholders, and there is no standardized template for monitoring and evaluation. There is limited participation of beneficiaries in decision-making, contrary to the rights-based approach to humanitarian aid framework. It is still a one-size-fits-all kind of approach in terms of the aid. Too much of aid is focused on relief, when the situation is actually moved from relief to recovery. The GAs and their teams are equally traumatized and may soon suffer burnout, and this will affect efficiency. Recommendations. There should be responsible social and mainstreaming media reporting, including Civic Society reporting, to avoid misinformation that is likely going to drag the donors into apathy. The government of Zimbabwe should set up a robust and effective M&E system. Organizations with expertise in this area must be incorporated in these thematic areas under the Civic Protection Unit. There is need for trauma healing processes at local level, and of course, to be specific, there is an urgent need for psychosocial support. There is need to set up an urgent, effective information system with particular focus to this disaster to curb the donor apathy that may be caused by the information distortions. The geologists to investigate the state of the underground situation in the areas like Ngangu to guide the government of Zimbabwe where there is need to relocate, those people. Investment in the building of capacity for the Civic Protection Unit. To create an urgent ongoing M&E system. There is need for training on the sphere's project standards for all stakeholders active in the area to foster coordination and accountability. On the background of the above findings and recommendations, in Chipinge and Chimanimani, there is now a need for a robust recovery framework that is issue-based. This should include a needs-based assessment that should see the two affected districts back on the wheels of recovery. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we are here and we have heard, the purpose of the mission of the civic organization to be on the ground together with the churches. This involves 85 organizations who identify themselves as civic organizations and churches. I'm sure we are done on that one. We have heard. Just to add, I don't think I'll dwell much on this, but just to recommend the government and then the entire nation to persuade the survivors to accept to be relocated elsewhere. Though it's not easy. It's not easy for them to accept that, because we actually interviewed them and then they found that no, they better be there. But this will give us a long problems that will keep on taking place in the country, especially on these floods. We interviewed some of these people who felt that it was just a problem. Within the survivors, there are kids or children who are at other schools outside that district. They've lost their parents. And then on the other side, you will discover that the same parents who have gone, within those parents, is either one parent is gone or the other parent is survived. The situation on the ground is so painful. Especially, you won't blame anybody there. Previously, the rains were actually sweeping away or destroying the homes within the valleys. But this time, it all started from the mountains, where some of these people were on the bank of the mountains. And it really started there. The sound and then the earthquake sound or trauma, which actually occurred there, it was on the mountains. So there is no way whereby these people can be recommended to stay put in that particular area, but to be relocated to some of the zones that will actually save the lives of the people. And then in this Ngangu primary school, there are 110 people there, and then this is they are housed at the primary school. Let us also put in mind that the schools have been closed, and then they closed the schools earlier, 2 weeks earlier. But as we are going with this holiday, very shortly the schools will be opened. What will be the situation with the people who have been housed there? This is what must be recommended to the government. We know very well that the mission definitely was to correct the propaganda which was, peddled across the country, but whosoever thefts and other issues and so forth, which was not actually there. It was any individuals. If there was somebody there. Similarly, as we are here together, we are not members of the media. But somebody can do anything here to tarnish the image of the media as an individual. So these are some of the things that we're actually meeting there, and then we really found the truth and the strength of it, that the long arm of the government or of the law will reach to nearly everybody who infiltrated for the sake of that objective of thieving. But however, as a team on the ground, we failed to identify one. That is what we actually discovered and found on the ground, of which, as we know here, the civic organization are on the ground. I persuade the media fraternity not to take seriously the politicians' statements whatsoever, because there is a lot of propaganda that has been taking place. Hence the need of visiting the areas. And then, as you know, we have, according to ZEC, 133 political parties who registered. But we also call these people to be together. This is the time where they should identify themselves with the suffering members of the country as citizens. This is the opportunity. According to ZEC, it's only one political party in the name of ZTI that is registered after elections. But where are these other political parties? Except those 18 parties who are teaming together these days. So we are not saying all of them, they must be there or neither here, but they must actually identify themselves by donation or pleading or teaming together with others for this cause, for this issue that has taken place in our district in Chimanimani and in Chipinge. However, without going too far, I think the lot of things it has been already unpacked, of which we would like to have to request for 3 questions and so forth, but this is just what is in our documents. Those who need the document, they can always ask that. Yes, ma'am.
My question is